Welcome to the myvelocitybanking.com channel where we take you through the best ways to optimize the velocity banking strategy. If you haven't already done so, head over to the website myvelocitybanking.com and sign up for a free account. And when you do, you can put in your income and your expenses and it will automatically calculate your cash flow, figure out which chunk to pay off, which debt to pay off, and how much chunk you should be making, and all the things that go into implementing the velocity banking strategy. So it's really easy for you to use. So today we're going to talk about emergencies and one-time payments like trips or car repairs. How do you handle that when you're actually doing the velocity banking strategy? So we're going to walk through an example and we're going to show you how to take advantage of your debt tools to actually pay off any emergency or trips that you have planned. So one of the basics of implementing the velocity banking strategy is to try and increase your cash flow. Now, one way to increase your cash flow, actually there's multiple ways, but the fastest way to increase your cash flow, excuse me, is not to have anything going to savings, right? So you take everything that you were going to go to savings, you now put it towards your cash flow, towards your debt tool, and then that increases your cash flow and pays down your debt faster. So this gets people a little bit panicked because then they start thinking, oh my God, what happens if I run into an issue? What happens if I need car repairs? What happens if I need to go on a trip? What about Christmas when I'm buying gifts? All these one-time expenses or emergencies gets people panicked if they don't have anything in savings. So let's walk through an example of how this would actually work, what you would actually do. So if, like I said, if you haven't already done so, go on in, log into your account feature now that allows you to figure out how one-time emergencies or one-time expenses actually impact your velocity banking timeline. So once you entered in all your income and you've entered in all your expenses and of course all of your debt, the credit cards you're using, all that other stuff that the app already does. Now there's a new feature right down here called one-time expenses that you can use to figure out what to do in case of emergency. So in this example, this person is going on a trip. So before I show you what happens and how this works, let's just look at what they have right now. So because the app goes through all your debts, it figures out the best thing to pay first, and it gives down and it gives you a pay down chart. So for example, pay off your grandparents, pay off the medical bill. There's an Amex that you can pay off, and then you start paying your car payments, and all that's going to take you about a year, just over a year, to pay off this $20,000 debt with a starting cash flow is only $630. And then you start paying off the rest of your debt. Very clear. So your whole debt we paid off in about 6 years implementing the velocity banking strategy. Now, what if you want to do a one-time expense or we have an emergency? So we go back here, and now let's say we're going on a trip, and the trip's going to cost us $2,500, and we're not going to have that trip till December, near the end of the year, and we haven't booked the trip yet, but we're thinking we're going to put this trip on the Citibank card. So now you hit the get report again, the exact same scenario. And now you'll see that it doesn't appear, but your years has gone up. So to pay this $20,000 of expenses of debt that you originally had, now it's going to take almost a year and a half. So you're like, what happened? So what happened is that trip got factored in to your Citibank payments. And so each payment, the chunk payments and all of the actual payments that you make has already taken this calculation has already taken into account that one-time fee, that one-time expense. So let's go back, let's just change it again so we can see it more clearly. Let's say I want to use my Amex instead. Let's submit that. I'm going to do a get report. Same thing. Now, on the Amex, because you're using your Amex as a means of paying down your other debt. So that means it is going to automatically factor in this $2,500 for your trip right into the calculation of your Amex, and when you do chunk payments, all that other stuff. And then when this is when it'll remind you and it'll make a little note of when the trip is actually going to happen. But all the while, it's already factored this in. And then when the trip happens, that's great. So you either pay it here or you book it now, and then you just pay it down as part of your regular payment. And now we'll see that this doesn't look that good, because now it's going to take you 3 years instead of a year and a half. It's going to take you almost 3 times as long to pay this off for that $2,500 trip. Now, why is that? It's because you're using that, because the payment is happening early on in your Velocity banking journey. So that means that your cash flow hasn't increased yet. You're not getting enough of the velocity. You're not getting enough bang from the cash flow yet. So when this comes along, it's just going to be like any other expense, and it's going to just take you longer to pay it off. So what you do is that you come back here and you figure out which of the credit cards is best for you. So in this case, it's the Citibank card that was best for them. So if you look at it, we see we're going to look at it again, and we're going to see that it's going to take 1.42 years to pay off that $20,000, where if you put on your Amex, it's going to take you three years to pay it off. So the moral of the story is that if you can do 2 things: one, trying to postpone as far in advance as you can, as far away as you can, to when you're going to take a trip or plan any major one-time expense, because your cash flow would have increased by then, making it easier to actually pay down that debt, because your cash flow is like higher, so you pay it down faster and you save on interest and all the good stuff that comes with Velocity banking. Now, if you can't and you must do it, try and figure out another credit card that you can use to actually make this payment. The thing you shouldn't do is if you look in here and it gives you your one-time chunk payments, your first chunk payments, you shouldn't use any of these cards, because that will have an impact on your cash flow. So here it's saying because I didn't use my Amex in this example, my cash flow would automatically increase by, let's see, my cash flow would automatically increase by 40 on which card is best to use in case of emergencies, and you can plan ahead from when in case an emergency happens or when this one-time expense kicks in. All right, that's it for today. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like us. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, because we're going to bring up a lot more scenarios that apply to people as they're doing Velocity banking.